So everyone, thank you so much for joining us on Grab Your Keys. We are excited. We have a New Yorker who is a New York realtor, mostly selling in Brooklyn on Grab Your Keys today. Lindsay Barton it's Barton, right?
Barton Barrett, yeah.
Barton Barrett,
Yes.
super for the Barton Barrett team, is with Douglas Elman.
Douglas Elliman.
Yeah. Douglas Elliman, which we all see on TV all the time. So I am curious, what made you become a realtor in such a crazy market, Lindsay?
Well, I've been a broker for 22, almost 23 years. Yeah. So it was a long time ago. Market wasn't as crazy at the time. I was a real estate lawyer. And yeah, so I worked at a couple big firms in the city over the course of a couple years, and pretty quickly realized it was not for me. I enjoyed it, but I felt like the role that lawyers played in the transaction was not the role that I wanted to be playing, where I felt like our clients were really sophisticated. They knew what they were doing. And often we were mostly coming up with reasons they shouldn't do it. Right. And and that's an oversimplification, and I have immense respect for lawyers and all of those things, but it just wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And then I bought an apartment in New York City, which was, daunting. And I really enjoyed the process. And I thought, maybe this is a good path. My parents were not happy.
Right.
And 20 plus years later, they've come to terms with it. So
right. They were like, you went from a lawyer to a realtor. And we paid a lot for law school. So, yes. Which is okay, because if you're happy doing it, I have to think that you must be pulling a lot of your law stuff when you're showing houses, when you're writing contracts. I mean, you have, for your buyers and your sellers, a vast amount of information in order to protect them.
Yeah, it's really definitely something I can draw on. It helps me make sure also that transactions are sort of going in the right direction and keep lawyers accountable. The reality is, I think what makes me a good broker is not necessarily those things, but just, like knowing the practice and having a certain set of like fundamental sort of principles that we operate on and all of those things. But the legal training certainly is helpful in terms of structuring transactions and exactly like watching out for potential pitfalls, which is a part of our job, but it's not the only part of our job.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. What do you feel your 3 keys to success in building a team and a special real estate company? What are your 3 keys to that success?
I mean, well, I guess my question is are you talking about more as it relates to building a team or in terms of business overall?
Either one. How about let's start with building your real estate team. You've built a great team. So what are the keys that make you a great leader in that? How are you successful?
It's funny because I think that, like so many businesses, you can be really great at what you do. It doesn't mean you're good at managing people. And managing people, I think, is just about the hardest thing. And I think that I, like many other people like me, who are driven and really committed to their job, you grow not as quickly as you should because you want to control everything. And so I think that over the years, my biggest lesson has been understanding that I can only do so much and that you absolutely need people to support you, whether those are people who are on my team and working exclusively for me, or if it's third-party vendors and like a really good graphic designer or a really good social media person can really make a big change. So I think it's letting go is probably one of the biggest things as it relates to building a team. I've been really lucky. I've had some amazing people on my team over the years. My director of operations now is the only reason I'm still remotely staying which is, I don't know, probably a question still, but, you know, you need help, and in order to grow, you need help. So
I agree wholeheartedly. When I was building my team, I'm a mom of 2 running a big team. And I was like, I can't do it all. And I had to hire people at home and I had to hire people at work. And that allowed me to be as successful as I could be. But I have to let go of that control. Yeah. And I think sometimes that's hard for us to let go and to trust.
It's very hard. It's, you know, you've done it yourself for so long and you do it a certain way. And when someone else is doing it, invariably, it's going to be a little bit different. And so it's accepting that. And, you know, and so my feeling is I can't control everything that goes out the door necessarily, but I can't control everything that happens. And so you want a group of people whose judgment you can trust. Right. And so communicating, like, this is the expectation of how we collectively run this business. You know, we're prepared and thorough and honest and kind. Right. You know, like, those are the things that I expect of everybody on this team. And if we start from there, like, I think we're going to have success. And some people, you know, don't really want to work hard. And that's not a fit for us because we're a small team that does, you know, we do a really good volume. And so there's almost always a lot of work to go around. And so that tends to be the sticking point sometimes.
Right. Yeah. So the 3, if I was going to pull something out of the support team, letting go, and your core values. Yeah. You said, like, your core values is where you start from the beginning at the foundation of your team, and then everything can bloom from there.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one piece of advice that you frequently, you know, comes up time after time again that you use every day, that you might share with your clients or your team?
I think one thing that I do often share with people, because we're exposed to so many people in such personal ways,
right,
is that there are a lot of assumptions that we make that are wrong. And one of the things, and I think you come across this too, invariably, because you're dealing with specifically with people's finances. But, you know, I mean, and this isn't sort of my number one tip, but it is something that I took me a while to realize is, as it relates to clients, everybody has a very different relationship with money as a concept and their own money. And, you know, there are guidelines as to, like, how much you should be spending as it relates to your income. But, you know, in New York, we're exposed to this unbelievable breadth of finances.
Right.
And, you know, some people use money to make their lives easier. They find an apartment, they fall in love with it, they say, what do I have to pay to get it? And somebody who has 10 times as much money as that person may say, what is the absolute lowest price that I can get this apartment at? Because it's going to break my heart if I paid more than I had to.
Right.
You know, or, you know, sometimes we've had people come back to us and say, we have another offer and it's, you know, it's way more, your people have to match it. And I am just, you know, I'm heartbroken because they're going to lose it. And I call and I say, they're offering you an opportunity to match it, but, you know, I'm sure you're not going to do it. And they're like, no, great, cool. And then somebody else you could call and have that conversation and they say, you know, hit the road and whatever. So I think that it's you've got to not make those assumptions and have these, like, open and honest conversations with your clients.
Right.
And then you know how to represent them, you know? Right. So it's different, you know, it could be different for different apartments, you know, that one, they're like, I love it, but I don't want to pay more than this. This one, they're like, I love it, I'll do whatever I have to do. So I think that's a big one. I think, and I think that especially when I talk to new agents or people who are thinking about becoming an agent, the sad truth is it's not all sexy. It's a real job. And if you want people to view you as their advisor on this very important transaction, or if you're dealing with a developer or someone who is in the business, like if you want people to turn to you the same way they turn to their financial planner, you need to be as professional as their financial planner and take it seriously and show up professionally, know your stuff. It's not what you see on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that listening and not assuming are the most important parts, because if you make assumptions, you can assume wrong. Yeah. I remember my dad's a lawyer too, but my dad was building a house at the Jersey Shore. Mm-hmm. And I was in high school. Yeah. And I was on my way to the Jersey Shore, and I stopped in and I said, like, I needed money. I needed like $100 or something. I had no money. I was high school. So I was like, and he was like, I'm with somebody. And I was so annoyed that he was with this person who had like this pickup truck in the front. And my dad was like, spent like 35, 40 minutes with him, talking to him. And I was like, oh my God, what a waste. And he left. And I was like, Dad, what a waste of time. Like, that guy's wasn't worth your time. Like, I needed the $100 and now I'm late. So my dad gave me whatever he gave me and I left. I came home from the shore that weekend, and we had Sunday night dinner. My dad was like, I want to teach you a lesson, Sue. That guy not only bought one of the houses, he bought both houses for cash. So you need to not make assumptions on people's finances. Oh my gosh. Because you're wrong. So if I hadn't taken the time with the guy and given him the respect that he deserved, because I just took everything at surface value, I wouldn't have sold both of those units. Yeah. And it taught me that was a fantastic lesson under 18, that now I'm 55. I'm repeating the conversation almost 30 years, 40 years later. Yeah. So, and it was great. And I try to teach my children that, but having that reality of that situation and me making that huge assumption and not listening and not caring, listening, not caring is exactly what you're saying. You have to listen, you have to care, but then you have to act professionally. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, everybody says it, but I think that sometimes you can really see who people are based on how they treat different people. And I remember when I was first in the business, there was a woman in my office and my manager asked her to give a talk. And she drew this diagram about like how one rental then turned into all these other things. And it's, in this business, it's the same thing. I mean, which doesn't mean you have to take every single listing or every buyer who walks in the door who wants to buy who doesn't have the money. Like, it doesn't mean that, but it does mean that you have to be professional with everybody, because you never know where it's going to go. This person may have a cousin who just sold a company, and, you don't know. And it's just, and you just, if you're consistent with people and courteous, and it matters too, because we do so much repeat business with other brokers. Yeah. And so I was having this conversation with another broker the other day, is that honestly, I view brokers as my clients as much as I view my clients as clients, because that's your repeat business. And so I think, that's what I try very hard to do. So you've been in the business for 2.5 decades. How do you see this business evolving in right now? It's just a crazy market. Where are you seeing it, especially in the Brooklyn area? You see everything before everybody else sees it. I mean, yes and no. I will say one thing that is very New York is we do everything differently here. Like, we're not members of NAR. Right. We do transactions in a different order than basically everywhere else.
in terms of how offers are made, when diligence happens, what contingencies ultimately mean to a deal. And so in some ways it makes it a little more fraught because a deal isn't a deal until everything's fully executed, and that takes time. And so I think that lends itself a little bit to a bit of a like cutthroat perception of like, I had a deal and then somebody else came along and paid way more and I got screwed. Like there's more potential for that to happen in New York because of the way we structure deals, unfortunately. But it's also the way we structure deals. So there's that element of it. But I would say, you know, Brooklyn, I've been very fortunate to be in Brooklyn during the time that I have been. You know, I've worked in Brooklyn since about 2004. And it is an amazing place to live and work. It just continues to grow, but it's also, you know, it's also a finite resource. And one of the attractive things about Brooklyn is it's much lower scale and the buildings are 4 stories instead of 40 stories. And so it makes it charming, but it also means that we just always have limited inventory. So it's competitive. It's really competitive for buyers. It's difficult to keep sellers in check sometimes because they know there's limited inventory. And so it's really, I mean, this business is just like bridging the gap between buyers and sellers. And, you know, it's how is that manifesting itself today?
Yeah, right. So how did you get into that, having that nook of an area like Brooklyn? Like how does that happen?
Well,
do you just decide where you want to be, or does that happen that's where you have most listings and most sales?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is, that's how it evolved. I moved to Brooklyn in 2004 and I had the good fortune. I started a development company with my now ex-husband. And so we developed some condo projects in Brooklyn. And so that just really got me like knee deep in it really quickly. And from there, it just really took off. It was, you know, meeting clients, mostly those listings, and then just kind of going out from there. And I've been very fortunate in my career that I've really never cold called people. It's been really like working other people's open houses when I was a baby broker, and then, you know, getting those buyers. And then it's been mostly referrals. And then this sort of foundational period of time when we were selling these condo projects, there were probably 5 or 6 over the course of a number of years. And I will say also, having been married to an architect and done a lot related to that construction and stuff, I learned a lot about construction, zoning, design. And I really kind of fell in love with townhouses. And so it always helped me advise my clients and be able to recognize the diamond in the rough and be confident going into something knowing they were going to have to do a construction project, because with limited inventory, sometimes that's really the only way to get what you want. So, yeah.
And then you make it your own.
Exactly. Yeah. And some people they're only going to do that. And, you know, construction in New York is a fun thing. But
permits and no place for the trucks, and it's congestion and chaos.
It's tough. It's tough, but you know, it's often worth it. And then some people come in thinking that it's nothing, and it's my job to make sure they really understand how much they're going to take home. And so, you know, we want to be honest with people. You know, construction too is so expensive and people don't believe you. And, you know, and I like to be, I'm always honest. Sometimes I'm honest to a fault.
No, I get it.
Yeah. But it's, I have a lot of close friends, contacts in the construction and design business. And we're doing a disservice to everyone by saying to a client, oh yeah, you could definitely renovate this house for $800,000. And then the architect comes in and they're upset with the architect because you gave them the wrong number, not the architect, And so it's just, it doesn't, you got to set people up for success. And sometimes that means telling them things they don't want to hear.
Yeah, and that's hard because people don't like to hear that.
Yeah.
So what's in the future for Lindsay and your team?
The business is in a weird place for sure. It's a hard moment for real estate. And yes, you see a lot of people from Elliman on TV. I think that those shows have done us a huge disservice. And, we really are professionals. We take it seriously. Everyone I hire on my team, I think, is incredibly smart. And we don't just open doors. We don't throw drinks in people's faces. We work really hard. And we also spend a lot of time on Excel doing spreadsheets and all of these things. And it's not about the drama. It's not about.
I think people need to realize, I always say that if I wanted to commit mortgage suicide, I'd be on a show.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, why are you not on the TV? Why don't you do it? And I was like, oh, if I wanted to commit mortgage suicide, I would definitely do that.
Yeah.
And that's not, so I agree with you, because since I'm in mortgage, if I watch it on the rare occasion I watch it.
Yeah. Sometimes on a plane, I'll watch it.
I'm like, what? That's not reality. And because it is TV. I mean, we have to remember it is TV.
Yeah.
They might say reality, but it is TV.
Yeah.
So, and and it's a drama. So, I agree with you. I think that is a disservice because people aren't all paying cash. People do have to, work their way through the different finances. And even sometimes when there's a cash offer, there really isn't a cash offer because they're and the cash offer means no mortgage contingency. That doesn't mean that it's going to close.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's something that people always think also. Yeah. And you see all that stuff on TV and I'm like, that's not people are signing mortgage papers. Not everyone has cash. So I agree that is a disservice. And we are in a little bit of a moment.
Yeah.
I do think that we're going to come out of that moment, hopefully, and soon. But the demographics of it is that, the average age of a home buyer has doubled practically. Yeah. So we need to get home ownership into a younger hands at some point in time. And the pricing is crazy in New York, especially. Yeah. And there's lots of young people in New York, which feel the affordability is difficult.
Yeah. And New York's a really transient place.
Yeah.
I also, it's funny. I don't remember who I was talking to or how this came up, but I also think that as the world has changed and jobs have changed and everybody's working from home. And I think that, where our parents had one job or our grandparents had one job forever, it was a career, they had a pension, they went to the office every day, they took pride in that. We're different than that. Our kids are so different from that. Right. And, and millennials and all, I also understand wanting to make sure that you're available when an opportunity presents itself.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so I think there's also this headspace that's changed and, and also not everybody has the flexibility to say, oh, okay, well, I got a great job in Austin, so now I'll rent my apartment in New York and move to Austin. I think that the history of home purchases, typically a significant amount of your net worth is tied up in your primary residence.
Yeah.
So I think,
I
think there's a lot of different things that make it daunting or they think it's not advantageous, but the reality is, I sometimes do tell my story. I'm very much a function of that, property ladder. I bought a 1-bedroom apartment in the East Village in 2000, and I sold it 4 years later and obviously values don't always go up. That's really important for people to understand.
Mhm.
But, I sold that and I leveraged it to the hilt. I had a 90% mortgage. Well, I had a, 80% primary, a HELOC. Then I refinanced it again. I got another HELOC. And that's how I quit my job as a lawyer.
Mhm.
And then I sold it later. And because I was so leveraged, it was like, my return on investment was outrageous. And we turned around and bought an apartment in Brooklyn, and then we sold that and we bought our townhouse. And, there is some real element it's part of the American dream, I think.
I agree. It is definitely. We have to keep that alive.
I know. I agree.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
So it is part of the American dream, and we do need to keep it alive. Lindsay, it's been great talking to you. We're going to have all your information below. And if anyone needs to get in touch with you, they'll know how to get in touch with you. And I have really enjoyed our time together. Thanks. I don't know much about the Brooklyn market, so I loved getting to know you. And I think your team's amazing. So if anyone needs any help at all, they're just going to reach out to you. So
awesome. Well, we'd be happy to help.
Awesome. Have a great day. And everyone, grab your keys. We look forward to seeing you next time.